be optimistic, and we gonna win games, bro.
All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Douglas Show. It is a Friday, so we're going inside the command center. This week we'll be doing that with the Washington Football Maniacs. Greg Sykes and Brandon Scott. Fellas, what's happening?
What's going on, my man, Big Doug? Thank you for letting us come on your show and just rap with you about what I've been saying on our videos here. And I've been kind of getting a rise out of some of the fans. I've been saying soon to be one of the greatest franchises in the NFL. And I know people are like, why do you say that? I'm like, just stick with me. It's going to happen.
I think we're going to get there, and the job is becoming better and better by the minute. Fellas, if you didn't know, first timers to the show, we're always trying to figure out kind of how you guys got into the YouTube game, how long you've been doing. Brandon, give us a little insight on the Washington Football Maniacs.
Oh man, we this is actually our first season together as co-hosts together, man, and it's been fun, man. I've been doing sports podcasts. It's about my second year. I started out with doing Wizards content, Locked On Wizards, and I kind of went from there. But I'm loving it, man. Like you said, I've had fun with Greg, man, chopping up, talking about Panthers football, man. So,
Greg, how long has the channel been up and running?
I started the channel December of 2020, I believe. So, it was a kind of a COVID baby thing. I messed around, started doing some other YouTube channels, non-sports related, and just kind of got that taste for wanting to do something with YouTube. And I always talked football with my coworkers, and I was like, why don't I just do this with YouTube? So I kind of married the two together, and it's been fun. It's been ups and downs, but I love it, and I've been trying to continue to grow the channel since then. So that's kind of brings us up to today.
And if you describe the channel to somebody that hadn't gone and checked it out yet, what would you tell them to expect from the channel?
Well, basically, it is commentary from a fan's perspective, but long time fans. I've been a fan of the team for 40 plus years, and I know that seems odd because I'm only 21.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But I've been a fan for a long time. I've been through all the glory years, the lean years, of course. So I feel like I have a lot of thoughts in this noggin about Washington, and a lot of good commentary. We love to talk about anything, whether it has to do with the front office stuff, it has to do with the players themselves, but we also do it in a way to where we try to make it respectful, I think, for the team. We don't try to go and badmouth anybody. We do, as any fans, we're going to go over there and we're going to be a little frustrated sometimes when we feel like there's certain players that are not living up to expectations, but that's just kind of the fans from us. But at the end of the day, we respect them all. And so basically it's a commentary, it's entertainment, it's just having a good time with a couple of guys sitting around just chopping it up about sports, football, and just having a good time doing it.
Brandon, how did you two end up meeting up?
It's a funny story, man, because I got out the military and I was trying to kind of find my way. I wanted to get into sports stuff, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't really watch YouTube unless I was, I'm a big gun guy. So if I wanted to learn how to take apart a gun, I'd go look at videos. But I started looking at videos, and there was two main channels I looked at. It was Greg's, and then my current co-host, Locked On Wizards. So I was a fan of both channels, and then we kind of, established a relationship, and then it just got to a point where I was like, hey man, would you mind having a co-host? Because sometimes it's better to have somebody to kind of talk to and go from there, man. So I started out as a fan, and it got into a point where I've kind of proven to myself that I could do this. Because like I said, coming out the military, trying to find my way, I didn't know if I could do this. And my opinions is one thing, but do people really want to tune in to hear my opinions? And now that I kind of see that they do, trying to prove myself. But nah, man, I've had fun with Greg, man. Like I said, started out as a fan, and now we're rocking together, man. So
That's awesome. I had, it's funny. I should have realized, but I did not put together the Locked On Wizards. When I first started the podcast myself, we used to do Commanders and Wizards, and I'll still do a little bit of Wizard stuff. But Brandon, you said you take it on the chin then, because those are you don't get any respite there with the two franchises that you're not talking about. I'm not sure. It might be more brutal to talk about the Wizards these days than the Commanders. That's yeah, I guess two similar franchises, both heading towards full rebuilds. Who's closer?
I definitely the Commanders. I mean, you see talent with this team. They have a foundation set. Where if you look at the Wizards, they're kind of trying to set that foundation, and you kind of have a lot of questions. Jordan Poole, what is his fit going long term? Bilal, he has a lot of high upside, but can he develop properly? Looking at Denny Avdiak, is he part of the answer going forward? Where if you look at the Commanders, this offense, they have a lot of skill. I mean, if you look at the receiving core now, obviously we have a high chance of losing Curtis Samuel, but I mean, if you look at McLaurin, you look at Dotson, so they have a foundation, whereas the Wizards, they're starting from step one. You know what I mean? So I would, if I had to bet on it, man, I think the Commanders would definitely be the team that would win the title before the Wizards, unfortunately.
Depending on how you look at it, the one thing with the Wizards is they obviously are going to do it slow.
Yeah.
If you can get the players in, you can do it quicker, I think, with basketball, simply because you need two stars and you can get heading in the right direction. Problem with the Wizards for the Commanders is, and Greg, I'm not sure, we've been talking about this a little bit on the podcast recently. The problem is the talent as good as we think it is? How many blue chip players are on the roster currently, Greg?
That is a very good question. That was something that I had kind of spoke about in one of the videos as well. Is that's not an easy question to answer, because honestly, you're not going to be talking about more than maybe a couple of players. I really want to say that Terry McLaurin is one of those blue chip players, but obviously his play has dropped off this year. Now, I don't really believe it's been because of anything that he has not done. I think it's been more of just the players around him. There's the situation on the offensive side of the ball. You basically have what you really consider a rookie quarterback throwing to him. That offensive line has been just horrid this year. And so, if you don't have the pass protection there, you're not going to be able to get open down the field and get those huge chunk plays. So I think that's really that's really torn into the style of play that Terry McLaurin can really show you. But I still think he is considered a blue chip player. Defensive side of the ball, you really start to scratch your head. You really feel like before the season you would have came out and said, "Oh, that's easy." You got Deron Payne, definitely John Allen, and then maybe Montez Sweat. Well, of course, Montez Sweat is gone. And then John Allen and Deron Payne, I felt like that their progress or their performance has really went down since since Montez Sweat and Chase Young have left. I still think maybe those guys could be blue chippers, but I don't know. Right now on defense, I would say you hardly have maybe Deron Payne at most, but man, I tell you, it's not an easy question to answer when it comes to the Commanders team. Terry McLaurin is the only one I could really tell you right off the bat that I would feel like would be a blue chipper, but there's people who would debate that.
Yeah, it's wild, Brendan, because I think, I don't know about you, but before the season started, I think I probably would have counted 3 or 4 guys on that list. And whether it was the coaching, whether it was losing the 2 ends, the defense certainly was not what we thought it would be. Where are you with the talent level on the roster?
That's a good question, man. I think that, this was kind of a team that was trying to rebuild to a certain degree. So a lot of the players, you kind of gave them accolades that didn't really deserve.
Did you think it was a rebuild before the season started? How bullish were you on the team before the season started? How many wins?
Man, I honestly had 10 wins, man, because I definitely thought that the defense was going to be at least a top 10 defense.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, looking at it, there are questions. Let's be real, and this team's going to have to hit on draft picks. They're going to have to spend some money. They're definitely going to have to spend some money because McLaurin, he has played, you could say, above expectations. Looking at where he was drafted and what his expectations,
Sure.
going forward. But is he a true number one? We'll see. Maybe you need to find a guy that depend on the other side, maybe a taller receiver, maybe a Mike Evans, to kind of take the pressure off of him. But I mean, looking at running back, I want to give Brian Robinson another year behind an O-line to really see if he's a lead back. But I mean, we talked about, with Jonathan, was it Jonathan Taylor when he was available, maybe swinging for, we in my opinion, we need a lead back, man. We need a guy that, can go out there for, 3 downs, go out there and be the guy. And Brian Robinson, the jury's still out. Tony Gibson, I don't think he's going to be back. And he's had so many issues, fumbling issues and being inconsistent. So I think there's a foundation offensively. I mean, the defense needs a lot of work, but offensively there's a foundation, but we need to put some money into this team. The O-line is just bad, man. And since we've lost Trent Williams and that O-line, we haven't done enough to really reinforce the O-line. And that's kind of goes down to, Sam Howell. And, a lot of people looking at the performance with, Jacoby Brissett coming in and playing well and saying, oh, maybe we need a quarterback change. My thing is this guy played behind an O-line that was terrible. And he's still in top 5 in passing yards. So get this guy an O-line and we'll go from there and evaluate. So, yeah, looking at 2 guys, to me, would be Sam Howell and Brian Robinson Jr. Give them help, get an O-line, and then we can judge them from there. Behind an O-line, if they still don't play up to snuff, then you need to look at replacing those 2 guys.
So if they don't play up to snuff next year, then you'll be looking at a top 5 pick again. Here's the thing with Sam Howell. And the conversation starts here. If you're picking in the top 5 this year, do you really want to punt another year of getting it going? I guess let's do it like this, Greg. Right now, you take Sam Howell or Justin Fields.
Justin Fields actually, once he kind of came back, he's played well, and of course that was it Thursday night that we played the Bears. I didn't see a bad play out of Justin Fields at all. But then again, I don't know. I mean, Sam Howell, to me, it's still his first year. I know he's a second-year player, technically, but it's his first full year playing. And he's playing behind such a horrid offensive line. I want to see him play against or play behind at least if they're 50% better, then to me that's a world of difference. I think I would still stick with Sam Howell because he can also be a dual threat. I've seen him get out of situations where I'm like, wow, he made a great play that I thought was dead in the water, and he can make those throws. So I don't know. I think I would still stick with Sam Howell. Justin Fields, I think, is much better than what people are giving him credit for. But I don't think he's that much better than Sam Howell at this point.
I only asked that because we've been doing this exercise a little bit on the show recently. And to me, it's not necessarily either about who's better. I just find it interesting that if the Bears are willing to move off of Justin Fields when they could have put a 1st and 4th round pick or 5th round pick, let's say, whatever they end up with this year, around Justin Fields, and they decline for an opportunity to upgrade, then I find it unusual that Commanders fans would be so unexcited to upgrade on a guy that we have to have a conversation about whether he's better than Justin Fields. So I just find it interesting, just as an exercise to figure out where we're at. Brandon, it made it also sound to me like you'd ride with Howell for one more year. It's tough for me to not want to draft quarterback in the top 5, even if Olu Fashanu or Joe Alder, one of these guys, is the next Trent Williams. Can you pass up? Would you pass up Trent Williams for the next, Patrick Mahomes or Allen or Burrow? Not suggesting that's what these 2 top tier quarterbacks are, but the point kind of gets to the same. Where are you this year with what you're hoping is you're not having one of these premier picks all the time. So how would you spend the premier pick this year?
Oh, easy. Left tackle. I'm grabbing that left tackle from Penn State.
Yeah.
Easy. Because my thing is this, I know a lot of people are looking at Marvin Harrison Jr., looking at a quarterback, but it's like, would you buy a Ferrari no engine in it? It's like, if you could put whoever you want back there, and you can put whatever receiver, but if you don't have enough time to get rid of the ball, if you don't have enough linemen to open up running lanes, then what are you talking about? You're just putting more people out there to be fodder. You need to go out there and get into the trenches. It starts with the trenches. If you look at the Super Bowl teams for the Skins, man, it started out with the trenches. We didn't have a franchise quarterback for none of those 3 titles, man. But we had a offensive line where a guy could go back there and be successful. System quarterbacks went back there and they were successful. You have got to build up the trenches. It starts and ends with the trenches. So easy, man. I'm definitely grabbing either the left tackle from Penn State or the one from Notre Dame. Easy.
And I think a lot of people agree with you. I mean, when you check social media, that it feels like that is where we're at. But I'll say again, there is such a disparity between the value that a top 10 quarterback has, even compared to a top 5 left tackle.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that you would trade if we're doing some sort of Madden style redraft. How many quarterbacks go before the first left tackle goes?
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, you got to also think how many top 10 quarterbacks never really did anything. I mean, Matt Leinart would look pretty good coming out of USC, and then now he's sitting on the couch. So, it's just so many different factors, man. It's, especially with this organization fit. We gave up the world for RG3, and then was he really the fit in that system? No, not necessarily. So I think that when you look at, top 10 quarterbacks, man, if it's the perfect system, then yeah, it's definitely a marriage made in heaven. But, very often than not, teams feel like that quarterback's the last piece, and they'll bring them into a wrong system, and then they end up flaming out in 3 years. You got to bring a guy into the right system. And I think that we have the guy. With Sam Howell, if you look at the intangibles, Brissett came in and he played better, but I mean, look at the quarterbacks we've had before Howell. I mean, his decision making is better than Wentz by years. I mean, Wentz just was a statue, and then Taylor Heineke had heart, but he didn't have the arm. Sam Howell has an arm. He's got an accurate arm, man. I mean, he's made some throws that are like, whoa. I mean, he can run. He can run with power. He can run with vision. He's got the intangibles. It's just giving him the talent around him and the O-line. But yeah, I'm gonna give him one more year. Like I said, with an O-line and with more weapons, the excuses are out the window. And if he doesn't prosper after that, then you definitely have to go out there and go get a quarterback. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I get it, man. I get the sexy pick as quarterback. And definitely if you look at guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., you add him to a receiving core with Terry McLaurin and John Dawson. That is sexy. But the sexiest pick ain't always the best pick. I think the best pick is definitely show up that blind side for Sam Howell, and then we'll go from there.
Is it taking the pick there, Greg, or is it trading back for more options?
That's a good question, because honestly, I think you take a look at your situation, and if for some reason, because we have to look at where we actually are going to be picking at, because guess what? We're playing the Jets this weekend,
That's right.
And Trevor Siemian is the starting quarterback. And I'm seeing the post on Twitter right now saying, I hate to tell you this, but the Commanders are going to win this weekend. And this is coming from Commanders fans, and I'm kind of like, that's the oddest thing I've ever seen, but the thing is, it does affect our draft picks. So, if we start to slide out of that top 5, then you're starting to look at the fact that not only are these sexy picks going to be picked by the time that we may be up, but these left tackles that we're salivating over could be gone as well. And so if that's the case, then by all means, I think I would trade down and pick up some more draft picks and really use that to fill out this team, because we also have to remember too, we've got the cap money, so we can go crazy in free agency as well. There's bound to be some guys in free agency that we can use for areas of need, so we may not necessarily have to look at the draft for some of these positions either.
Yeah, bad year to need O line in free agency. Good year to need pass rushers in
Yes.
free agents. Though it's a deep class for pass rushers, and there's a couple linebackers out there too. It'll be interesting. Brendan, do you have a preference for the next head coach, whether he be offensive or defensive minded?
Ah, I'm gonna say defense. I know
Well,
that there's a lot of noise in Pittsburgh, and we did a good show about Mike Tomlin, man. And my dad, he's a Steelers fan, so he's definitely not happy about Mike Tomlin maybe being on the move. But Mike Tomlin has, he's got family in the area. He's from Hampton, Virginia, so he's definitely got local ties. Definitely defense, definitely defensive minded. But I will say this: we need a coordinator. Eric Bieniemy. We'll see. I'll be honest with you. I'm not 100% sold in him coming back. I think that you've seen some good moments, some bad moments, but consistency is the name of the game. And you haven't seen consistency with play calling. I think that sometimes he feels like he's still in Kansas City.
they're
And
averaging one more point a game, Brandon. Do you feel like EB's flown under the radar as far as criticism goes? I mean, this was a guy I think that people thought, and particularly when they just started slanging around the field, that points would be up. They're not, man. It's 1 point better a game, and I don't hear anybody complaining about that or EB's style.
yeah,
Are you surprised about that?
very surprised because this fan base is very quick to get on people, man.
That's right. That's right.
How he's able to get by is just I agree with you, man. He has not been consistent. He does not utilize the run game, and if you add that with the abysmal time management with Ron Rivera, it's just is a terrible game being called. And I hate to say this, but he feels like he's still in Kansas City. Kansas City has gone by without having a lead back. Relying too much on the pass, and we're not the Kansas City Chiefs. We are who we are, and he's got to utilize the talent that he has, and he has it. And yeah, I agree with you. He has flown way under the radar with criticism because, he has not come as he hasn't been as advertised. I was thinking like he's going to be this high profile offensive coordinator is going to put up records, and like you just said, we're barely better than we were last year. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I looked at it the other day. One point per game, and it feels like they've regressed. Greg, when the season's over and they go back and look at Sam Howell, they'll go at about the halfway point and say things started sliding backwards. I wonder when it's all said and done and we look at it, what did Sam Howell regress? Did the play calling regress, or did they just start playing better teams?
I think it's a little bit of combination of all of it. Because I think Eric Bieniemy, I think he's still learning to be an offensive coordinator. I know that in Kansas City, he helped, and I know he called some plays, but he wasn't the man. He comes to Washington, and not only is he the man calling the plays, but he pretty much took over the entire offense, made all of the decisions on the coaching. He made a lot of decisions on who was supposed to be on the offensive line. And so I think he's still learning how to be basically that. He's basically the assistant head coach. So I think there's some blame that lies in there as well. And so I think with his play calling, I think it did regress some, partly because, let's face it, the talent that he hoped to have wasn't there on the offensive line, so that affected his play calling. And I think with some of the teams, it's like they just figure out what you're going to do because they know you're limited. They know you have to get the ball out of Sam Howell's hands much faster, so they're going to eventually figure out a way to double your receivers. They're willing to lay back off of Sam Howell and or whatever, and then okay, we're going to start running the ball. We need to run the ball more. That's something I've been saying the whole season. So we start running the ball more, but then they're like, okay, well, we'll just load the box with 8 guys there and force it back in the Sam Howell. So it's a lot. And then I think with Sam Howell too, there was so much put on him to lead this team. He just wasn't ready for that, I don't think.
Yeah, I've said this much. Eric Bieniemy threw him in the deep end and said, learn how to swim. I was stunned that was the game plan.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it was too much for him. And like you said, it was like sink or swim. And I think in the beginning, it was like, he's doing pretty good. But then at some point, I think it's wore him out. And I think mentally he knows that, well, of course, we're out of it. I'm still trying to, lead my team, but, there has to be, I don't care what these players say, there has to be something in their minds that's like, what am I doing this for? There's nothing to be accomplished at this point. The season's over. I'm just trying to stay healthy. So, yeah, I think definitely Sam Howell has regressed in some regards as well, just trying to get through the end of the season. He knows that a lot of these coaches are going to be gone. He doesn't know what his future is going to be, if the new coaching regime is going to take him on next year, if they're going to replace him. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of everything. I don't think you can just really pinpoint it on one particular thing.
Brandon Bieniemy has been good at coach speak this year. I was surprised when he came out and said Rivera was the one that suggested that he bench Howell. Were you surprised that he said that?
Oh man, very surprised, man. That shows
That
that
was
there's
a
kind of
stutter to me.
oh man, I tell you, that shows there's a disconnect between these two coaches, man, which
Yes.
is another reason why you need to kind of just start from scratch, man. Because once you see that there's kind of a disconnect between coaching staff or within the coaching staff, then there's issues, man. Because coaches are supposed to be on the same script. So when you got coaches are kind of throwing each other on the bus, man, that is always a sign for the bad sign for this team. So yeah, I mean, I think it behooves everybody involved that they go ahead and start from scratch, including the offensive coordinator. Like I said, Bieniemy just haven't been as advertised, and you got to start from scratch. And I think they will. This new ownership, they have a track record of success. Josh Harris, the 76ers, even though the 76ers haven't finally reached that level they've been trying to, but they've always been a stickler about building the team up for contention. Magic Johnson, you spent $1 billion on 2 players in the Dodgers, so
Sure good.
yeah, no problem spending money trying to bring a championship. So, but I mean, the coach staff is just, yeah, once you see coaches throwing each other under the bus, which is exactly what he was doing, man, then that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, because it was odd. It wasn't even like it wasn't so terrible that like he threw him under the bus, because I think the move was fine. I mean, it was
Yeah.
obvious that the kid didn't have it at all, but it wasn't good either, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it was just one of those like, why are we saying this now? Greg, where do you think Bieniemy ends up next year? Because I'm with Brandon. I don't think it will be here.
I've heard, rumblings about Chicago being interested in Bieniemy. That may be a good landing spot for him. Obviously, there's going to be several head coaching openings at the end of the season. So I don't know. I see him in Chicago for some reason. I just think that might be a good fit for him. I do think he deserves a shot at head coach. Give him that opportunity. I do like his coaching style. I do think he has a hard-nosed coaching style that I think can be, sometimes that's what you need, especially with a franchise that has probably gotten a little soft, So sometimes that's a good wake-up call. Although, let's think back about how many years ago has it been now when Mike Singletary, he was a hard-nosed head coach in San Francisco. That didn't work. So, there's more to it than just, being hard-nosed. You've got to be able to have that leadership quality. And, I don't know how much of that Eric Bieniemy has. What I like in a head coach, and what I think you guys have seen as well, and what we liked out of him, was Joe Gibbs, how he had the leadership ability, he knew the X's and O's, he was smart, he knew how to make adjustments and things like that on the fly. It was attention to detail. That was the thing with Joe Gibbs. Pay attention to detail. He would stay at Redskins Park till 3:00 in the morning. I mean, we've all seen the the specials, so we know the whole story. But it's stuff like that. It's what I like to see out of a coach. And honestly, I don't care if it's a defensive head coach, defensive-minded, offensive-minded, special teams, or whatever. I think those qualities like that is what you need that's going to make your team successful.
It's interesting. You brought up Gibbs. It appears that Gibbs was the man that signed off, suggested Ron Rivera. What was it that Ron just couldn't get right here in Washington?
I think the issue with Ron was that he wanted to be he wanted to be the front office and the head coach. He wanted to be everything. The coach centric philosophy. I have not really seen that really succeed a whole lot. I know that some people may be able to point up in New England and Bill Belichick, but I'm like, well, guess what? Bill Belichick had Tom Brady attached to him all these years, which really helped. And I know that's a conversation for a whole another video, but a lot of times I feel like that for Ron, I think maybe a couple of things. I did a video on this, or either I've got one coming out for this, that why did Ron Rivera fail? I think the coach-centric, he bit off too more than what he could chew. I don't think he was really good at player evaluation. I don't think he was able to really pick the best players for what he wanted to implement. I don't think that he picked the right coaches to surround himself in Washington. Because you remember at the end of last year where he said, I want to have a 2-to-1 ratio run to pass. And then he hires Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah.
That doesn't mesh. I mean, that's like the total opposite of what you want to have accomplished. So I don't understand. You say that, you do one thing, say one thing, do another. So I don't think he really was able to surround himself by the best coaching staff, and I think that was part of his downfall. I think if Ron had just, if he had the perfect general manager there to say, hey, I'm going to get you the players, you tell me what type of players you need, I'm going to find you the guys you need, you focus on coaching, surround yourself with the best possible coaches you can, just focus on the game. And the final thing that I think was the reason why that Ron Rivera failed. You could see the in-game situational coaching, just not calling reviews and things like that when you think he should have called the red flag, or just timeouts and just the game flow. Just things just always seemed odd. It's like, why is Ron Rivera not calling timeout in this situation, or why is he calling timeout in this situation? So, man, Doug, I tell you, it's just there's so many things, and I think for Ron Rivera, if he had just been the head coach and surrounded himself with the good head coaches, he probably would have succeeded. But I think he wanted to be the man, and it was just too much for him to handle at this point.
Brandon, was Ron a better GM or head coach while he was here?
Coach. I mean, GM wise, like Greg said, a lot of questionable draft picks. Kind of reaching a lot of them. I mean, really, these draft picks he made, it just really made you question, like, what is going on? Like, with Forbes, it's like I think everybody's waiting on them to say Christian Gonzalez, which I think the Christian Gonzalez is just a more pro-ready guy. I mean, if you look at his body, he's ready for the pro game. Where Emmanuel Forbes, man, ball hawk in the SEC, but I mean, his body is just. He's not gonna go out there and tackle no running back. Can you imagine Forbes and Derrick Henry looking at each other? It's like, come on, man. I mean, it ain't happening. So, and if you look at the fact that Forbes was really projected to be a second-round pick, he reached on it. The same thing with Jamin Davis. Jamin Davis, in my opinion, has been a bust. He's been inconsistent. That
was the worst draft pick of the tenure in my opinion. I've been on record saying that Christian Darrisaw was one pick later, totally set the franchise up.
Yes. Oh.
And frankly, I would have traded up in that draft for Fields anyway, but that's just me. The Bears spent one extra first-round pick to make that happen. Whether Fields ever pans out again, it's as the Marty said after this draft, right? We probably wish we'd have been a little bit more aggressive. And to me, that will be when this group is all said and done. I think that's that should be the trademark. We probably could have been a little more aggressive. Round 2, Brian Branch is there. That's who you wanted. You let them slip by one pick. Like, what are we doing here? I mean, if they had wanted somebody other than Forbes, again, why not go up and get them? I understood the concept of getting Forbes. They had no turnovers, and he led the SEC in turnovers for 4 straight years. And it's in the SEC, so I will credit that a little bit more than some of the other. But they've missed so far.
Yeah.
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 and it's
Agreed.
been frustrating. Greg, what will you remember most from the Ron Rivera era?
Mm. Oh, it. I'm trying to keep this positive.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think what I'll remember the most is probably the first season he was here, the COVID year. Um, the team looked like it was left for dead, and then he was battling cancer. Just we felt like, okay, we were not expecting much out of this year anyway, but uh, that Pittsburgh Steeler game to me seemed like that was the game that turned the season around. They were down 14-0. They came back, they won that game, and then they went on a big win streak, got into the playoffs even with a losing record because they won the division. Just seemed like a year that gave us all hope. So I think that's probably what I remember from the Ron Rivera era the most, was probably that 2020 season.
Brandon, if they decide to go quarterback in the draft and really just do this reset that Harris has kind of talked about, right? Like, I can give you wins overnight, but it's not sustainable. We've got to kind of do this thing for the long term. How many years realistically are they from being that kind of in this position where you feel good about their chances to win each Sunday?
I would say 2 years, 3 years at the most. And then the reason for that is, like I said, they have a foundation. They just need the right coaches in here. If you look at certain positions, we have the right pieces here already. But there's some tinkering to do. I think that kind of going back to the Wizards, right? I think that rebuild year number one is next year. This year is kind of a transitional year because a lot of the aspiring deals, veteran deals they have to move. And, why not? But looking at the Commanders, they gotta have that transition. You got a new coaching staff in. They have to acclimate to the personnel they have, make the correct decisions, and go from there. And like you said, with Sam Howell and Brian Robinson, see what they can do behind an O line, and then after that, go out and get a lead back, go out and get a quarterback. But if they go out and get a quarterback, they have to definitely still invest in O line. I mean, you can't, you cannot leave this off season with the same O line.
How many O line are worth bringing back for next year?
Ooh, I mean, Larson has been decent at center. Cosme, look, I don't think enough credit has been. Yeah, I
that's the one. That's the one, Cosme. Yeah.
I mean, Larson as a backup, I can see that, but Cosme, I think that not a lot of credit has gone to him being as consistent as he has at the position. Because if you look at O line, he has been that consistent part of the O line.
Yes, I agree. He's been fantastic. I've said that a bunch. To me, of a dark season, one of the bright spots to me has been Cosme. I still think you can bring Leno back for a year. He's got enough that he can do it, because again, the offensive line of free agency is not good. And while you can bring in, I think, several draft picks, depending on who you draft, I mean, they drafted several O linemen this last draft, and they couldn't find their way onto the field. I think that's a different, frustrating story. We will not, kick Ron on his way out. But again, that was a couple brutal draft picks there. So it's like, I don't think you can't replace them all at one time. But I do like, I love Cosme there at guard. I wonder if they'll try to figure out something with right tackle and get Wiley in over to left guard, because I don't think you can come back. I think you can come back with Leno at left tackle. I don't think you can realistically run Wiley back at right tackle for another year.
I wouldn't want to do that, honestly. No. Wiley has been,
and that's an EB thing, right? You have to assume.
Yes. Yeah, you have to assume that. Wiley has just been a detriment at right tackle there. I want somebody else there. I don't know who, but I just want somebody else there. Honestly.
I mean, what do you guys think about switching Leno to right tackle and then bringing in another left tackle? What do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I have been told that that's kind of why they didn't go after, say, Roderick Jones, who went one pick before Emmanuel Forbes, which would have been the pick for me, because I don't think they thought he could beat out. I don't think they thought he could beat out Leno in year one.
Yeah,
and so didn't want to take. See, I think they thought Forbes would start from day one, right? I mean, that's why you also have to take Martin, because you assume that you'll then need a nickel corner because now all of your top three corners were all boundaries.
Yeah.
So I get that. I think it was the same reason. I think they thought they'd get the right tackle from Tennessee was going to fall in the draft last year, and it may. And then when he goes like 9 or something, that you were never going to make that move to get up high enough to take a right tackle. I think that's when they kind of switched up and went to Forbes. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but I've heard some rumblings about how that might have been it. So again, it'll be curious to see how the new group looks at. See, to me, you just draft the best player available.
Yeah.
We started out this conversation by me asking you guys about blue chip players. And to me, that's what they've got to do in this draft. That there are 4 outside of quarterback. There are 4 blue chip players to me: the 2 tackles, Brock Bowers, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Whatever it takes, you've got to get out of there with one of those blue chip players because this team is dying for blue chip talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
How
Yeah.
will you guys spend the last 3 weeks of the season?
Evaluation.
Yeah.
Honestly, evaluation. Just put guys in. I mean, why have we not seen more of Drabel Cox? Put him in. Let's see what he can do. Why is Emmanuel Forbes not playing more? I think I've seen
They hate
him.
Forbes. I don't know what he did. He killed somebody's cat because this isn't about fun. Like I don't know what he did.
I know he must have seen some wife naked or something like that. I don't know. I don't understand. What Cole Turner? I mean, that's the biggest mystery to
I
me.
tweeted out the other day. I said someone put an APB out for this guy. It's incredible that these guys aren't getting playing time down the stretch.
Yeah. I mean, Cole Turner, provided, I know some people were assuming was because he's not been very good at blocking. I'm like, okay, I can give you that, but why can't you not still have him in there as the pass receiving tight end and put in John Bates as more of the blocker tight end, and maybe have a 2 tight end set on some of those 3rd and short, plays, and you have either John Bates who could block and then go out for a pass, and Cole Turner who could be he could go out for a pass, or he could be a decoy or something like that. I mean, he's made a lot of good passes in the little time or catches, I should say, in the time that he's been in there. So I don't understand why they're not playing him more. I just really think, honestly, he must have some blackmail or something on somebody. I don't know what it is.
Because they started out the season playing a bunch of 12 and 13 personnel with the 2 and the 3 tight ends, and then they got out of that. And I understand why, because you've got 3 really good receivers. So if you're trying to game plan around what you got, I get that. But again, I mean, young guys galore should be in on this thing, and I'm guessing that's not what will happen. I see James Smith-Williams, who I love, big fan, healthy. He's going to start this week. To me, like I understand that you are doing him a square one by doing that because he's an upcoming free agent, who I think they should retain. But I mean, you've got Andre Jones and KJ Henry that you really need reps for to see what they look like, and to give them to James Smith-Williams, who again, I'm a fan. It doesn't feel right, and yet we already know he's going to start on Sunday.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right because KJ Henry, he's made the most of his opportunity. I mean, he's really looked good when he's been in there. So why not continue to give him more playing time?
In pressure rate last year, a lot of people don't realize that he was like our guy that got shipped to the Bears, right? Pressure rate really high, sack rate not so high. But you want that pressure rate because eventually they turn into sacks.
Yeah. Exactly. So, yeah, I just don't.
How many wins do they have left in how many wins do they have left in them? Any wins? I know that they don't get any wins secretly, but this Sunday is going to be. It will be interesting to see Twitter's reaction on Monday if they win on Sunday, because you're always rooting for wins. I know I watch them for the wins. I want the wins. It'll feel good on Sunday, and then on Monday when you see that little 7 or 8 next to the Commanders instead of a 4, we'll be sad again. We'll be very, very sad. Like,
That's where we always pick at. Come on. Yeah, I'm with you though. It's like, last week when we were playing the Rams, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be a blowout, and then Brissett comes in. Suddenly, we kind of start coming back, and I'm like, I'm actually, I'm not rooting against this. I'm actually enjoying seeing the team having a spark here. But I'm like, just as long as we lose 28-27 or something, I'm fine with that. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm saying that as a longtime fan.
And it feels like it's been a while since we've been in this position, which is odd because the franchise hasn't done a ton of winning, but we haven't been in this particular position in a while where we've got such an opportunity for a high draft pick. And obviously, there's nothing left to play for other than pride in the season. So while you're right, last week against the Rams, I cannot remember a game that I was less excited about. I was still watching and I was still getting excited, right? So I mean, it's a weird conundrum that we're in. Tell the folks before we get out of here when the show drops, new episodes, and all the things.
Well, we're kind of scattered as far as our schedule, but usually I try to release videos around 6:30 in the evenings. I usually try to do mostly during the week. I try to do daily if I can for the most part. So usually, like I said, around 6:30 in the evenings. Now, Brandon and I, we tend to record Friday evenings, and then we'll try to release those maybe the next day or Sundays after the game. So we're working hard on trying to get a solid schedule together. My work schedule sometimes is kind of scattered. So I don't always get a chance to release on a regular schedule, but I am trying to be a little bit more regular. So basically, I'll tell folks, be looking for new videos, usually in the evenings around 6:30, and on a daily basis. And sometimes in the mornings, I will stream live for about 10 minutes or so, just for a little bit in the mornings. And so I'm a little bit like that. I'm kind of like a kamikaze ninja type of YouTuber.
Sounds dangerous.
It is dangerous.
Well, fellas, happy holidays to you. I appreciate you coming on. We'll do it sooner than last time. It's taken too long. I didn't realize. But,
Yes.
I was surprised when I realized we hadn't done one of these together. So, love what you guys do. Keep up the good work, and appreciate you coming on today.
We
Yes, sir.
appreciate you. Yeah, we appreciate you, Doug.
Thanks, guys.